My name is Cynthia Fried. I'm 32 years old, and this story begins, like too many others, at a dinner table where truth had no seat. Christmas dinner at my parents' house always looked perfect from the outside. The table was set like a magazine spread: candles, cranberry glaze, rosemary sprigs on every plate. My mom, Linda, believed presentation fixed everything. She used it to cover up the things we weren't supposed to talk about: money, favoritism, resentment. And sitting across from me, as always, was Emily, my little sister, the self-made success of the family. The golden one, the kind who could crash a car and somehow get praised for handling it gracefully. I used to think I was just unlucky, that Emily's charm somehow deserved the spotlight, but over the years I realized it wasn't luck, it was strategy. She knew exactly how to cry, flatter, and manipulate our parents until they forgot logic. That night, I could already feel something coming. Dad had that smug, too proud smirk, the one he wore right before he said something that would make everyone at the table clap. I took another sip of wine, the bitterness curling around my tongue. Stay quiet, Cynthia. Don't ruin the holiday. That's what I told myself every year. But this time, I was tired of swallowing things that burned. Halfway through dinner, Dad stood up with his fork in one hand and his glass in the other. He cleared his throat dramatically. "Let's raise a glass to Emily," he announced, eyes gleaming. "She's never taken a penny from anyone, entirely self-made, our pride and joy." The table erupted. Applause, laughter, clinking glasses. Even Aunt Denise, who once lent Emily $5,000 and never saw a dime back, was smiling like she was auditioning for a commercial. My mom's smile was glassy and brittle. Emily's cheeks flushed in the golden light, pretending to be modest. And me? I just stared at my wine. I felt the heat rise up my neck, the kind that came from years of being the responsible one, the one who fixed things, paid for things, held everything together while being told to stop making drama. So I said it, quietly, calmly, like I'd been rehearsing it in my head for months. "Great," I said, setting my glass down. "Then she won't miss the $2,500 I've been quietly paying toward her business loan." The silence that followed was instant. Fork stopped midair, Emily's smile froze, and the color drained from my dad's face. No one spoke for a good 5 seconds. Then Mom whispered, "Cynthia, what are you talking about?" Her tone wasn't confusion. It was warning. I leaned back in my chair. 2 years ago, when your HVAC company was failing, Dad came to me privately. Said it was too embarrassing to ask the family for help. So I helped. $10,500 to restructure his business loan. I looked directly at Emily. "And since then, I've also covered your rent, your car repairs, and your phone replacement after you lost it that summer. Each time I was told the family was struggling. And yet," I gestured toward the framed photo from their Aruba trip hanging on the wall. "Seems like the struggle had a pretty nice view." Aunt Denise's smile faltered. My cousin Tyler tried not to laugh. Mom's face crumpled, the way it always did when she was cornered. A performance of tears just about to start. Dad looked furious, but silent. Emily blinked, then hissed, "Why would you say that in front of everyone?" I shrugged. I thought we were celebrating honesty. The table went dead quiet again. Even the Christmas music in the background suddenly felt too loud. For once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Because every year I'd been buying peace at the price of silence. And that night, I decided I couldn't afford it anymore. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping the hardwood floor. "Thank you for dinner," I said. "But I'm done playing the family ATM. No more secret payments. No more pretending we're fine. I'm ending the year clean." Dad's voice cracked as he barked. "You're being dramatic," Mom snapped. "Ungrateful." And Emily, her voice shook with rage. "You just want attention." I walked out before dessert. The cold air hit my face like a slap, but it felt good, like the first breath after years underwater. Outside, I lit a cigarette I hadn't touched in months and watched frost climb up my windshield. The house behind me still glowed in warm yellow light, but to me, it looked like a stage where the curtain had finally fallen. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the problem. I just felt done. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't know then, was that my family wasn't going to let me walk away that easily. They'd already decided if they couldn't control me with guilt anymore, they'd take something they could touch. It had been 3 weeks since that Christmas dinner. 3 weeks of silence, which in my family was practically a miracle. No phone calls, no guilt-tripping texts, no, we just want to talk. It felt peaceful. For the first time in years, my phone didn't buzz with financial emergencies or emotional blackmail disguised as family unity. I worked from home, kept my blinds open for the morning light, made coffee the way I liked it. Strong, quiet, mine. I thought maybe, just maybe, the storm had finally passed. Then, one Saturday morning, I heard it. A knock at my door. No text, no warning, just knock, knock, knock. I looked through the peephole and froze. There they were, Mom, Dad, Emily, standing like they were posing for some warped family portrait. Mom was holding a store-bought bag of chocolate chip cookies. Dad had that tight, fake smile he used when he was about to deliver a lecture. Emily stood behind them, oversized sunglasses on, like she was shielding herself from the consequences of her own lies. I didn't want to open the door, but I did. Mom shoved the bag toward me. We brought cookies. Her voice was sugar over glass. Dad stepped forward before I could even speak. We need to talk. I didn't invite you in, I said quietly. But they walked right past me anyway, like they owned the place. They sat down in my living room as if it were still theirs, arranging themselves just like they always did. Dad on the couch, Emily in the big chair, Mom perched on the edge like a saint about to be martyred. I crossed my arms. You've got 5 minutes. Dad cleared his throat. We think things got blown out of proportion on Christmas. Mom chimed in immediately, nodding too quickly. Families fight. It's normal. What matters is forgiveness. Then Emily leaned forward, removing her sunglasses. You owe us a second chance, Cynthia, after everything we've done for you. I laughed. Actually laughed. It startled even me. Everything you've done for me? I said slowly. You mean the years I spent paying your bills while you went on vacations? Or when I co-signed your apartment because you tanked your credit? Emily's face twisted. You're twisting things. You made those choices. Because I was guilt-tripped into it, I shot back. Because Mom cried and Dad said family helps family. Silence again. Dad sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. We didn't come here to fight. We just need a little help, temporarily. There it was, help. That word always meant money or favor. He looked up. Your car. We need to borrow it. I blinked. You're joking. He wasn't. He started explaining like it was all perfectly reasonable. Their second car was in the shop. Emily's had been totaled. They couldn't afford a rental, and Mom needed transportation for her doctor's appointments. You work from home, Dad said with that patronizing tone. It just sits in your driveway most days. It's a win-win. I couldn't even process the audacity. You mean you want to take my car, that I paid for, insured, and maintained, because you mismanaged yours? Mom frowned like I was the unreasonable one. Cynthia, don't be selfish. We're family. Something inside me snapped. I pointed toward the door. No, conversation over. You can leave. Dad's expression hardened. You've changed. You used to care about us. No, I said. I used to let you take from me and call it love. I turned to grab my phone from the counter, to call Daniel, to calm down. But when I turned back, the living room was empty. No voices, no footsteps, just gone. For a second, I thought maybe they'd actually left peacefully. Then I looked out the front window. The driveway was empty. My heart dropped. My car was gone. At first, I couldn't even move. I just stood there, staring at the spot where it had been parked, waiting for my brain to make sense of it. Then the realization hit like a wave of cold air. They'd taken it. My parents and my sister had literally stolen my car. I called. Nothing. Mom didn't pick up. Dad ignored me. Emily's number went straight to voicemail. I texted them all. Me. Bring back my car. Now. No response. Then, 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. You'll get it back when you stop acting like a stranger. I just stared at it. A laugh bubbled up. Not the funny kind, the kind that happens when reality breaks. They hadn't just crossed a line. They'd erased it. That night, I sat in the empty driveway with my arms wrapped around my knees, phone in hand, debating what to do. Because calling the police on your own parents, that's a line most people never imagine crossing. But I wasn't most people anymore. I thought of every time they'd taken something from me. Money, time, peace, and called it help. And this time, they'd taken something real, something with my name on it. So I took a deep breath, unlocked my phone, and made a different kind of call. Not to Mom, not to Emily. To the police. The dispatcher didn't laugh when I explained who stole my car. That surprised me, because I half expected her to. I mean, how ridiculous did it sound? Yes, ma'am, my parents and sister took my Honda Civic without permission. But she didn't laugh. She just asked for the license plate number, the model, and the names of the people involved. Family or not, she said, typing briskly, if they refuse to return it, it's still theft. Her tone was calm, procedural, but those words hit me like a bell ringing in a hollow room. Still theft. It didn't matter that we shared blood. 2 hours later, I sat by the window with my mug of cold coffee, watching the streetlights flicker while I waited for the inevitable call, the apology, the excuse, the manipulation. But none came. The next morning, an officer knocked at my door. He listened patiently as I explained everything. The car, the silence, the text. He asked gently, "You sure you want to press this? It'll be treated like any other stolen vehicle case." I hesitated. What happens if I do? Depends how they react, he said. Could mean fines, maybe jail time. I thought about that, about Dad's proud speeches, about Mom's fake tears, about Emily's smug entitlement. Then I nodded. Do it. He filed the report, and for the first time in my life, I stopped protecting them. 2 days later, the call came in. My car had been found, parked behind a strip mall near a hair salon 20 minutes from my house. Not at my parents' house, not at Emily's apartment. When the officer told me who had been using it, I almost laughed. Emily. She'd been driving it to and from her part-time job, acting like it was hers. When I arrived at the impound lot, my Civic sat there looking exactly as I'd left it, except for the pile of fast food wrappers and an empty iced coffee cup in the passenger seat. The officer looked at me and said quietly, "You can take it home, or you can press charges." I stared at the car, at my reflection in the window. Tired, small, angry. Then I asked, "What happens if I do press charges?" He explained again. "Could be a misdemeanor, a few days in county jail. It's your choice." I took a deep breath. Move forward. He nodded. Understood. The next day, my father was arrested. They couldn't prove who physically drove it off the property, but he'd signed the insurance papers last. He'd orchestrated it. When I got the call, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from something like release. Then came the fallout. Mom showed up at my door, screaming before I even opened it. "You had your own father thrown in jail like a criminal. How could you do this to us, Cynthia?" Her voice cracked, tears streaming down her cheeks. The same tears she used when she wanted me to pay Emily's tuition or fix Dad's business messes. I didn't answer. She kept going. "You humiliated him. Your sister is devastated. Is this how you repay your family?" Then I saw Emily standing behind her, hoodie up, eyes red. She wasn't crying. She was furious. "You think this changes anything?" she spat. "You think you're better than us now?" I just stared at her, and for the first time in years, she looked uncertain. "No," I said softly. "I just stopped pretending." She flinched, then turned away, muttering something about how I'd regret it when I needed family. When they finally left, the silence in my house felt heavy, but clean. I thought that was the end. That finally they'd learned a lesson. That consequences existed even for them. For a few days, things were quiet. Uncle Paul called to check in. "You did the right thing, kiddo," he said, his voice low. "Someone had to." My cousin Tyler texted me a simple thumbs-up emoji. It wasn't exactly comfort, but it was validation. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without checking my phone for urgent family messages. I woke up early, made breakfast, watched the light spill through the blinds, and thought, maybe peace can actually last. But it didn't, because 4 days later, at exactly 9:00 a.m., I heard the crunch of tires on my driveway again. I looked through the window and saw them, Mom and Dad. Dad was freshly out of jail, still pale, holding a thick folder. Mom wore her sunglasses like she was attending a funeral. I didn't open the door, but I could tell whatever peace I'd earned was about to be tested. They hadn't come to apologize. They'd come to bargain. They didn't knock. They just stood there, my father gripping a folder thick with papers, my mother clutching her purse like a shield. I opened the door halfway, staying behind it. "What do you want?" I asked. Dad's voice was eerily calm. "We need to settle this, Cynthia. Enough damage has been done." He lifted the folder slightly, like it contained the solution to all our problems. "I don't have anything to settle," I said flatly. "You stole my car. You got caught. That's on you." He exhaled sharply, as though I were the unreasonable one. "You've made this so much worse than it needed to be," he said. "We're family. We could have handled this privately." Mom finally spoke, her tone syrupy. "Your father's right. We've all said things we regret. Let's move on." Her voice trembled, but not from remorse, from control slipping. Then Dad opened the folder and pulled out a stack of printed pages, stapled unevenly. It looked freshly typed, the ink still dark. He handed the top sheet to me. Agreement, family restoration, and non-defamation clause. I blinked. You've got to be kidding. It was a contract, an actual contract, typed in clumsy legalese. It stated that I would drop any future charges or complaints against them, cease all defamatory speech about the family, refrain from discussing private matters with extended relatives, and, the best part, issue a public apology at the next family gathering. I stared at it, then looked up at my dad. What do I get in return? The car, he said simply. He even smiled a little, like he thought he'd just negotiated a brilliant deal. I tilted my head. Except you don't have it, do you? For a fraction of a second, he froze. Then his jaw tightened. Mom looked at the ground. Where is it? I asked. Dad hesitated, then muttered, We sold it. The words hit me like a slap. You what? He cleared his throat, defensive now. We needed a bigger vehicle for your mother's niece. She's got medical appointments and... I cut him off. You sold my car for someone else? He straightened, as if trying to sound rational. We traded it in for a down payment on a used SUV in Emily's name. It was just sitting there, Cynthia. You hardly drove it. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. Do you have any idea how insane this sounds? He reached back into the folder and pulled out a check. We'll compensate you. I glanced at it. The amount was so far below the car's value it would have been laughable if it weren't insulting. Take it, he said. Be smart for once. I handed it right back. You just added fraud to the list. That's when Mom snapped. Her mask shattered. You're destroying this family, she shouted. You've turned on your own blood. Do you think Grandpa would be proud of you? I froze. Grandpa, she went on, her voice shaking with venom. You know there's a clause in your grandfather's will about family unity. If you keep this up, none of us will get a dime. And there it was, the nuclear option, the guilt bomb. I just stood there, staring at them both, because they didn't know what I knew. See, a few years before Grandpa passed, I'd helped him organize his computer files and online banking. I'd seen a scanned version of his will, and it didn't match the one my parents always quoted. There was a family unity clause, but not the way they thought. So I let them finish their tirade. I watched Dad's smugness return as he said, You're making a mistake, Cynthia. If you don't sign this, you'll regret it when the estate gets settled. I smiled, calm, controlled. The kind of calm that comes before a storm you're finally ready to unleash. Thanks for the warning, I said. But you might want to reread that will, closely. He frowned. What are you implying? I'm implying, I said, stepping forward, that Grandpa wasn't stupid. He saw who you were long before I did. Their faces shifted. Confusion first, then unease. I closed the door without another word. Behind it, I could still hear Mom's muffled voice hissing, What does she mean? And Dad's low reply, She's bluffing. She always bluffs. But I wasn't bluffing, not this time. That night, I opened my laptop and started making calls. To Aunt Diane, who'd always suspected something was off with the will. To Uncle Paul, who'd once mentioned seeing an earlier version of it. And finally, to my cousin Tyler, who worked at a law firm that handled estate cases. I didn't know what I'd find yet, but I knew one thing for sure. The truth had been buried long enough. And this time I was going to dig it up. Tyler called me back the next morning. His voice was low, cautious. Cynthia, he said, I checked what I could. Grandpa's lawyer, Mr. Crenshaw, is still alive, still practicing. You might want to talk to him directly. My heart pounded. You think he still has the final will? I don't think, he said. I know. Grandpa had the original stored with his office, not with your parents. I thanked him and hung up. For the first time in years, I felt something other than exhaustion, clarity. It took one short conversation with Mr. Crenshaw to confirm what I already suspected. The family unity clause my parents had weaponized for years, it wasn't meant to silence arguments. It was meant to punish exploitation. The exact wording, any family member found guilty of financially exploiting another relative shall forfeit their share of the estate. And two names were explicitly listed in an amendment made just 2 years before Grandpa died, Gregory Brown and Emily Brown. My father, my sister. I remember gripping the edge of my kitchen counter so tightly my knuckles went white. All those years of being guilt-tripped, manipulated, called ungrateful. Grandpa had seen through it long before I had the courage to. I took a breath, thanked Mr. Crenshaw, and asked him to send me a scanned copy of that clause. When it arrived, I printed it out and stared at the highlighted section, feeling my heartbeat steady for the first time in weeks. They'd wanted a war of guilt. I'd bring them the war of truth. The following Sunday, I invited a few people over, just the ones who mattered: Uncle Paul, Aunt Diane, Tyler, and two cousins who had always been neutral. No theatrics, no yelling, just coffee, folded documents, and quiet tension. When everyone settled around my table, I spoke calmly. I think it's time to stop pretending my family's behavior is just misunderstandings. You deserve to know the truth. I laid out everything. The $2,500 I paid toward Dad's failing business loan, the rent and car payments I covered for Emily, the stolen car and the forged agreement, the fake will threats. No one interrupted. Even Aunt Diane, who was famous for interrupting mid-sentence, stayed quiet, eyes wide. Then I slid the final document across the table, the clause. Tyler confirmed its authenticity. Grandpa's exact wording was there, clear as daylight. Anyone guilty of exploiting family members for financial gain shall lose all claim to inheritance. And there, in black ink, were the names Gregory Brown and Emily Brown. Uncle Paul let out a long, low breath. "Well," he said, "that's that." I nodded slowly. "So the next time they try to guilt anyone into protecting family unity, remind them they already broke it." For a moment, the room was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then Aunt Diane leaned back in her chair, shaking her head. "Your grandfather saw this coming. He was smarter than all of us." Tyler smiled faintly. "Looks like he left you a final bit of justice." Later that evening, my phone started lighting up. "Mom, how could you do this to us? You ruined everything." "Emily, you're so proud of yourself, aren't you? Enjoy your little victory." "Dad, you've embarrassed this family. Be a grown-up, Cynthia. Take the high road." I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, stepped out onto the balcony, and watched the city lights blur into gold and blue. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty for protecting myself. I felt peaceful. 3 weeks later, the will was officially executed, and just like that, it was done. My father and Emily were cut out of the estate. Over 6 figures each, gone. I didn't celebrate, not really. There was no satisfaction in watching them lose what they'd already stolen in spirit years ago. But there was justice, and that was enough. I started packing for a new apartment. Smaller, quieter, mine. I sold the old furniture, kept the essentials, and signed a lease on a second-floor unit overlooking a little park. It wasn't much, but it felt like freedom. No calls, no guilt, no manipulation. Just peace. For a while, it seemed like the story had finally ended. Until one Thursday morning, 2 months later, when I stepped outside, coffee in hand, ready for work, and stopped cold. The driveway was empty. My car was gone. At first, I thought maybe I'd parked on the street. Then I remembered. The Civic was right there last night. I'd just had it serviced. I ran inside, checked my spare keys. Both were still in the drawer. Heart pounding, I pulled up the neighbor's security feed. The footage loaded slowly, each second stretching like an hour. Then, at 6:42 a.m., I saw it. My parents' old Ford pulling into my driveway. The blurry outline of Dad getting out. Mom following behind. They opened the door with a spare key I didn't even know existed, and drove off. The same car, the same people, the same pattern. Only this time I didn't panic. I didn't even call them. I just whispered to myself, some people never learn. And this time I dialed a different number, my lawyer. Because I wasn't the family's scapegoat anymore. I was done being stolen from. Forever. By the time my lawyer, Evan, arrived that afternoon, I'd already printed the footage, the police reports, the will clause, everything. I'd learned the hard way that when it came to my family, proof mattered more than blood. He watched the video twice. My parents pulling up in that old Ford, my father unlocking my door like it was still his house, my mother hovering by the mailbox as if this were some casual errand. When the screen went black, he exhaled through his nose. "They really did it again," he murmured. "Cynthia, this isn't just theft. This is premeditated. You could push for felony charges this time." I nodded slowly, tracing the rim of my coffee cup. "They used a spare key. I didn't even know they still had one." "Which means they kept access intentionally," he said. "We'll file immediately." He paused, watching me. "Are you sure you're ready to go that far?" I met his eyes. "They've taken from me my whole life, my savings, my time, my peace. This time, they took my sense of safety. I'm done hesitating." He nodded once. "Then we'll handle it." That night, I sat in the dark of my living room, no lights, just the faint hum of the fridge and the glow from the street lamp outside. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I felt empty, but the kind of empty that comes after a storm, when the wreckage finally settles and you can see what's still standing. I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Christmas dinners, birthdays, smiling faces that now looked like strangers wearing masks. I couldn't recognize the people who once told me, family above all. I whispered to the silence, "You can't steal from someone who's already left." 2 days later, the police called. They'd recovered my Civic again, abandoned near an industrial park, its tank half empty, the glove compartment stuffed with gas station receipts. The officer's voice was firm but gentle. "We have enough to move forward. Do you want to press charges?" I took a long breath. I pictured Dad in that same arrogant stance, Mom's tear-soaked performance, Emily's crossed arms. "Yes," I said. "This time, no more second chances." When the summons reached them, I heard through Uncle Paul that Mom had collapsed in hysterics, and Dad had gone pale as paper. Emily called him a coward. "You're just going to let her ruin us?" she'd screamed. But they didn't realize. I wasn't ruining them. They'd done that themselves. This time, when the court date came, I didn't even show up in person. Evan represented me. He said the judge was blunt. "You've already been warned once. Consider this your last." Dad got community service and a suspended sentence. Mom was fined for accessory involvement. It wasn't about the punishment anymore. It was about the record. Proof that what they did wasn't family business. It was a crime. Afterward, I blocked all their numbers, changed my locks, sold the Civic, too many memories, and bought a used SUV in my own name, no cosigners, no shared documents. When I drove it home, I parked it, sat behind the wheel for a long time, and breathed in the quiet. For once, no one could take this from me. Weeks later, Uncle Paul invited me to a small family barbecue. "Nothing big," he said. "Just good people, no drama." I almost didn't go, but something in me wanted closure. Not from them, but for myself. When I arrived, Tyler greeted me with a grin. "The legend herself," he teased. I laughed for the first time in months. They asked how I was doing. I told them the truth. Better, lighter, free. And I meant it. As the sun went down, I watched the light fade across the yard and thought about Grandpa, how he must have known this day would come. Maybe that's why he wrote that clause. Maybe he wanted me to be the one to break the pattern. For the first time, I didn't feel like the problem child, the ungrateful daughter, or the family wallet. I just felt like me. A few nights later, I was sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You'll regret this one day. Family is forever." No name, but I didn't need one. I deleted it without reading another word. Because family is forever, but only the kind that respects you, not the kind that drains you. I looked out at the quiet city lights and whispered the words that had become my truth. You can't make people see your worth, but you can stop letting them spend it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel stolen from. I felt whole.